Hi, this is Matt with State of Flux here with another 52-week movie challenge. Everyone's a critic. We are weeks behind on week challenge 30, a remake. The movie I chose, The Mummy. Year released 1999, aspect ratio 2391, runtime 2 hours and 4 minutes, genre action adventure and by its very nature horror. Rated PG-13, starring Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, Arnold Vosloo, Oded Fehr, and Patricia Velasquez. Directed by Stephen Sommers, produced by Universal. Written by Stephen Sommers, Lloyd Fonvielle, Kevin Ajar, Nina Wilcox Putnam, Richard Shayer, and based on the original screenplay from the 1931 film, John L. Boulderston. I think it was 1932, actually. Music by Jerry Goldsmith, who I was shocked to discover was only ever a recipient of one Oscar. He's had so many incredible scores from Alien, Star Trek, there are just literally just so many of them, including this one. The only one he ever won for was The Omen. Moving on to awards received for The Mummy, it was nominated for Best Sound. I was shocked by that. It was not nominated for Best Visual Effects. I remember at the time the visual effects were kind of stunning. Unfortunately, this movie came out in 1999 and was up against the incredible powerhouse visual effects driven films Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace and The Matrix, of which this is very much the least good-looking one, therefore it did not get nominated. I'd be curious to see what the other films nominated in that category were, because The Mummy's special effects, while they don't always hold up, were kind of revolutionary at the time and at a scale of a budget that either Matrix or Star Wars have. Why did I choose this film? I needed a palate cleanser. Remakes, by their very nature, are kind of unnecessary and oftentimes just cash grabs, and I can get into that in a tiny little bit, but I had just come off of Raging Bull and I despised my life, so I wanted to make sure I picked a remake that I knew I loved, and I wanted to do one that was quick, zippy, and fast. The Mummy is where it's at, yo. Have I seen this movie before? Yes, many times. Would I recommend this film? Why or why not? Yes, this is a very good film. It's a very spirited film. It captures the essence of classic Universal monster movies, i.e. the monster who lingers through the doorframe as the beautiful damsel is sleeping and engages her and pulls her into his grasp. That you see in Dracula, in Frankenstein, in The Mummy, in any other number of these Universal monster movies. That stuff is captured. There is great camera reveals to what the monster looks like, and the horror is present, but it's genuine horror. It's not like slasher-y. It's more there to evoke terror rather than to sort of or to evoke an atmosphere rather than to give you genuine scares. This film captures all that, while also putting it in the framework of when that original film came out. What do we remember from that time period? Pulp novels and pulp shorts and pulp films, and nothing embodies that more than, of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So what can Indiana Jones bring to a Universal monster movie? He can bring a fun, action-packed adventure film with lingering horror elements and a horror framework based around those classic Universal horror movies. And it was brilliant, it was unique, well, unique enough. I mean, it is definitely like a kind of riff on Indiana Jones, and honestly, I feel like this movie, maybe it's not as good as Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but for my money, The Mummy fits in better with Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Temple of Doom than The Last Crusade or certainly Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls does in terms of capturing that pulp feel. The character and creation of Rick O'Connell is fantastic, vitally brought to life by Brendan Fraser, who is ever so cool and very fun and funny, and I cannot stress how fantastic he is in the movie. He is what makes this movie phenomenal. If you're hearing a strange noise right now, it's because my cat just yacked all over the floor, so I'm going to attend to that shortly. And we're back! Sorry about that, my cat just yacked all over the floor. Why'd you do it? This is why you don't wait for me to do my reviews to start eating. Bro. Anyway, The Mummy is fantastic, aided by the character of by Rick O'Connell. I also really like the Rachel Weisz character. She is certainly dated, but she brings so much to it, and her like effervescent quality is really what sells everything that you need with that character. The movie has a good sense of humor. However, a lot of aspects of that humor is kind of dated at this point. Weirdly enough, this movie, along with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and to some extent Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, falls to the trappings that Raiders of the Lost Ark was developed for, which was to take the feel, the tone, the embodiment of 1930s pulps into a modern setting, but excising all the stuff that had not aged well, i.e. sort of canning a lot of the racist angles or more or less the sexist angles and stuff like that. Raiders is exceptional at bringing a modernism to pulp while still capturing the perfect feel of pulp, it's just sheer perfection. And weirdly enough, Temple of Doom, this film, the ones that I mentioned before, all fall to the trappings of just being a pulp, not evolving the formula, but falling and catering to a lot of unfortunately racist and sexist tropes. This film is no different and very much has those trappings, which don't age well. And I won't necessarily get into that. I will also say it is kind of hard in 2022 to watch The Mummy, a film set in 1930s, and see a whole country of Africa, or a whole country within Africa, being depicted by mostly non-African people. Like the title Mummy and the woman that he's trying to resurrect are definitely not from that area, and most of the people depicted within Egypt and Hemenoptera and stuff like that are not. That has not aged well, nor has the fact that you're in this film following, the American cowboy guy. But, I digress. It's still super fun, and that doesn't take away from the qualities the film has. It's just more talking points of how, even in 20 short years there, we have kind of moved beyond where this film was when it came out. And I urge you to use them as talking points and not write this film off for being dated. Which character were you most able to identify or connect with, and in what way? It's Rick O'Connell. He was just sheer charisma, perfectly embodied by Brendan Fraser, who is the ultimate leading man in this film. Every bit as charismatic and fun as Harrison Ford was in essentially the same role. Best line or most memorable quote? I like when the map gets lit on fire and Evie is like, "Ah, the map!" And then he just grabs her arm and is like, "No, here's the map, it's all in here." And then she just like looks worried and stuff. That part always makes me laugh. There's a lot of good one-liners throughout the thing, and I really like it. Another character I'm going to backtrack that I really liked is the Oded Frere character. He is fantastic, and really, he is also just pure charisma. And I'm not sure why that dude didn't have like a powerful swing of a career after this film. I certainly thought he was the most memorable thing besides the two title leads of Rick O'Connell and Evie. But moving on. Do you feel this film was better or worse than the original, and in what way? Yeah, so I had seen the original one long, long ago. And like before there was Mummy 1999, I saw it once and it didn't really resonate with me. I saw this and liked it a lot better. About 7 years ago, I watched the first one for the first time in like 20 years, and I was really impressed with it. It's very good. I think it's honestly one of the better Universal monster movies. It's not quite as good as those first two Frankensteins, but it's probably the next best one. I think it has a lot of qualities going for it in its sort of like slow burn of a horror story. It's not quite as visually stimulating as Dracula, which is why I think it kind of gets forgotten next to Frankenstein and Dracula. Visually, it's not nearly as engaging as either of those films, but I do think it's a better film than Dracula or The Wolfman, and maybe the first Creature from the Black Lagoon could give it a run for its money, but outside of Frankenstein and Bride of, it's better than any of the sequels that ever came out from that era, or The Invisible Man. So I think this is the original one's a very good movie. That said, I think this took what worked with the original one, utilized that and updated and swung in all this fun action adventure stuff to make this an infinitely more watchable movie. That first one's a nice slow burn, and in all honesty, this one kind of is too, but you have such an engaging character in Rick O'Connell that is driving the thrust of the film that you don't realize that really the Mummy doesn't come into full flourish until an hour and 15 minutes into the 2-hour runtime, and then you're at a breakneck pace at that point to save your damsel in distress. And the utilization of action within the slow burn horror tropes is brilliant at sort of updating and bringing life to something that kind of can seem slow and almost laborious with that original film. However, that original one is very good. And I do think they make very strong sister films. Did the film follow the original storyline, and did it create something new? Well, this is kind of a restatement of the previous question, but yeah, it follows elements of the original storyline. A mummy is revived who cares to bring back that with which he lost. The names are changed. But by and large, that element's still there. What they brought new into it is the whole adventure angle, which makes sense when you think of archaeology. You think of like the pyramids of Giza and stuff like that. And so bringing that whole Indiana Jones vibe to any of these Universal monsters, if you're going to do it, it makes probably the most sense to do it for a Mummy movie. So it was kind of a brilliant stroke of writing and made for an engaging film. There's one thing I'll touch on, but I think I'll do it at the end. Is there anything you would have done differently? I might have amped up some of the more physical um, qualities of the mummy. Like when you think of mummies, especially, and even in that very first Mummy movie, admittedly, you don't have uh, the mummy in rags kind of thing, but that is the very much the first thought you have when you're thinking of mummies. I would have brought that evocative imagery somehow into the fold, and it is kind of there in a quick throwaway scene here and there, but with other mummies that kind of get brought to life throughout the course of the film. But it's also kind of not, and that was a mainstay of the Mummy sequels that came out 10 years after the original Mummy movie from 32. So I probably would have brought some of that element to it just because visually I think that is such a striking look, and it may be that it's a dated idea or potentially like harmful notion to have like mummy and rag kind of thing, but as I say, it's such a striking image. I would have included that, otherwise I think it works excellently well. I guess I would have tried to find a way to Raiders it a little bit more in that in bringing it up to date, taking away some of the more problematic elements like say the depiction of people of color in this film are not always great, especially the Arab people in the film are not, they don't come off well. So I might have excised that. Anything else I would like to add? Yeah, Rick O'Connell is such a great character. All the characters in this film pretty much are. And I don't understand why, after the success of this one, they didn't Indiana Jones it fully. Like, it's clearly a riff on Indiana Jones. Universal has a whole string of monsters. Why did they make a direct sequel to The Mummy? The Mummy Returns is just a restatement of this film, but lesser. Not interesting. Nowhere near as fun or funny. It's watchable, sure, but it is vastly inferior to the original, that is Mummy 1999. Right after I walked out of the movie, I remember talking with, I saw it at a friend's birthday party, talking with them like how much we loved it, and then I told my dad about it that night, and I brought him to see the movie shortly thereafter. And when we walked out of the theater, my dad very much loved this movie, but loved that Rick O'Connell character. And I remember both he and I talking and saying, he's going to be the next Indiana Jones. I wonder if he's going to go to Castle Dracula next time and do a whole Transylvanian kind of story, or somehow get roped into like a Wolfman or a Frankenstein, or Creature from the Black Lagoon would have made sense as he is an adventurer. Let's bring him into the Nile or something, or not the Nile, the Amazon River, and then find the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And we were just like, the thoughts, they're endless, this is great and exciting. And when they announced that they were going to make a sequel to this, they didn't announce right away. They called it Mummy 2 just for want of a better thing, but they had no story beats. And when they announced that it was going to be him versus the Mummy, and the same Mummy no less, I remember feeling incredibly disappointed, but optimistic because this one was so fun. And that optimism went out the window shortly after I saw the preview because it looked just like the same. Why they didn't do like a follow-up, be him in the Amazon battling a Creature from the Black Lagoon who's trying to get Evie, is beyond me. That's where you take this story. Or have Castle Dracula and Evie gets roped up into that, and bring the adventure spirit to all of these classic horror stories. It's a shame that we didn't get that, or what could have been. Now, the filmmaker even went on to make one of these movies, Van Helsing, and it was hot garbage, so maybe he wasn't the right guy to bring this to light, but man, what a missed opportunity. Alright, I keep saying that. We're going to move on. Challenge for next week is a film festival winner. Cool. I'm sure I'll find something. I got a whole bunch of movies for my birthday that I haven't even watched yet, so we'll do that. Maybe I'll do The Worst Person in the World or something like that, or maybe I can go old school with Last Temptation of Christ. I just got these from Criterion. Or The Piano, something like that. Anyway, thanks for watching. What did you think of The Mummy? Pitch me what your ideal Mummy sequel would have been if it was not The Mummy Returns. Thanks for watching. Drop that down in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.